I've found over the years from a lot of creatives and posting work online is that they feel they're a little bit too perfectionist, or they feel like things need to be perfect before they post their work. And I think it's a very natural feeling for a lot of creatives, and including myself, I've definitely had this feeling before, and it definitely comes up when you are wanting to post your own work online and you want it to be of a certain standard. And I think that that's completely fine that we hold ourselves to a certain standard. However, today we're going to be talking about Instagram and social media and how we can kind of get around this a little bit more. Because I really want to talk about why you don't need to have incredible content to post on Instagram, and particularly on Instagram Reels. Thank you so much for clicking on this video today. If you're new here, my name is Kaylee June, and I'm a beauty and fashion photographer based near Sydney, Australia. However, in the last few years, I created this channel to talk about all things freelance, creative, business-wise. I love having this space online where we can really come together as small business owners or freelancers or creatives to talk about these things that I feel like sometimes are not talked about enough. So today we're going to be talking about Instagram and Instagram Reels in particular, as I mentioned before. And I'm going to stress to everyone watching this video, your content on Instagram Reels does not need to be incredible. It really doesn't. I think it's something that we need to be very real about. And you've probably been on Instagram Reels before. You've been watching a reel and going, how did this get so many likes? Or how did this get so much engagement? And the reel that you might have spent 4 or 5 hours working on and editing and shooting and making it look perfect maybe gets absolutely no engagement at all. And it's hard to see sometimes how things like this work, because it can be very disheartening when something like this happens and you kind of feel like, what's the point? But what I'm here to really tell you today is that work posted to social media, but in particular Instagram Reels, doesn't need to be incredible. It doesn't need to be perfect, and you don't need to put that kind of pressure on yourself, especially if you're in the beginning stages and you're just starting off with Instagram. You're starting a new Instagram account. You don't need to put this kind of overwhelming pressure on yourself. And we're going to go through a few points as to why you don't need to do this. So I think there has been a major shift with Instagram in recent years, and especially ever since Reels kind of became more prominent. I think the aesthetics of Instagram definitely got lost a lot. I think everyone can remember a time on Instagram where we would scroll through people's pages, through people's accounts, and you'd be looking at their amazing, curated, beautiful photographic feeds, and everything would look perfect. There'd be a theme, everything would be in the same tones, and it would look beautiful. And nowadays, it's not really always the case, because Reels don't always tend to have that effect. And if you don't even go to necessarily the point of creating a reel cover for your Reels, then it's not gonna look like that on your feed. It's gonna look pretty basic, to be honest. And that's completely fine. It's just something that we have to acknowledge that has happened on Instagram, is that shift from it being really aesthetically perfect to now really not being aesthetically perfect. And don't get me wrong, there are some incredible Reels on Instagram that are aesthetically amazing. They are incredible. The photographers or videographers that have made these Reels and really put the effort into editing them and shooting them, it's really wonderful. Like, there's so many different cinematic Reels out there that I've seen that are just absolutely stunning. However, not everyone has to be creating that kind of level of content to get engagement on Instagram Reels. And I'm going to talk about why. So I think one thing that we already know about the Instagram algorithm is that it favors consistency, and it really does favor things like daily posting or posting at least 4 or 5 times a week. Now, for most people posting to Instagram, they do not have the time, the energy, the effort to be putting into making 4 or 5 or 7 aesthetically perfect Reels. And by aesthetically and technically perfect, I'm talking about shooting with like a 4K mirrorless camera and then editing everything in Premiere. And I think if that's something that you're already used to and you're making Reels very regularly and you're happy with that, that's totally fine. But I'm talking about as something as simple as just creating your Reels in the Instagram app, because that is how a lot of people are getting their engagement. That is how a lot of people are posting their Reels to Instagram, and they are not doing anything too fancy. They're not going and buying expensive camera gear, or they're not going and using professional software to edit the videos. They're just using the Instagram app to edit their Reels, something that I've actually been doing daily for about 6 months now. And even though I'm a professional photographer and semi-videographer, I would prefer to be spending a lot of my time on other work, not necessarily Instagram Reels and really making a lot of my Reels necessarily through these programs or through my professional cameras. I find that it's easier for me to make this content through the Instagram app, and in turn, I've got more energy to be able to post daily or even 4 to 5 times a week. At least when I'm doing that, it's taking a much shorter amount of time. I can use video and content that I've already shot on my phone and easily put it into a reel that way. And that is how a vast majority of people on Instagram Reels in particular do post their content. Some of my most watched reels have actually been some of the most basic and actually reels that just took me a really quick time to make. I might not necessarily have put a lot of effort into making them at all, and yet they were the ones that seemed to do really well. Whereas ones that I've quite often thought about for a long time, I've had more of a plan going in, I've shot them on a professional camera, I've edited them in Premiere, they haven't even done as well. And I think it's because I've changed my mindset in how I'm posting to Instagram Reels too, and what the algorithm is really valuing. And another thing that it really values is actually engaging with other people's accounts and similar accounts to your own. And especially if these accounts have left comments on your reels, I find it's better to put a lot of my effort into replying to those comments, and it really helps to build that kind of community. Instagram is a social media site, so they want you to be social. The algorithm wants you to be social. And I think if you make that time for that as much as you can, I'm not talking like about being on there 24/7 each day being social. If you're not into that, that's totally fine. I'm not either. But using it, 5 to 10 minutes a day just to go comment on someone else's reels or engage with other people, I've found has been far more progressive overall than actually spending a lot more time into creating the reels themselves. I think that comes with time too. The more that you post to Instagram Reels, the more you get the hang of knowing the algorithm, the more you get the hang of knowing what is trending at any given time. That's when you can put a little bit more effort into your reels and really start to expand. Maybe you want to shoot something on a professional camera or edit in Premiere. That's fine. But I think initially when you're starting out, and because the algorithm really favors consistency, you want to make things as simple as possible to be able to post as regularly as possible. It really is something that you can build up to, and the more that you improve your skills as you're just starting out and you go along, the more that you can really reach into doing things that look a little bit more wow or look a little bit more aesthetically amazing. As I said, engagement is a really, really important thing for Instagram, and particularly Instagram Reels. And one way to help build this engagement too is to do reels that actually either pose a question or maybe something that is really helpful for other people, something to spark engagement like a hook. And I've found that captions along with the reel are very, very important for this. Actually creating a conversation into the captions is much, much better than spending all of your time making a pretty reel. I found that has been one of the really changing factors for me, and writing a caption that is engaging every day rather than just skipping over that and just posting some hashtags has really changed my whole engagement on my Instagram account. So that is one thing that I'd highly recommend if you've not been doing it. As tedious as it can be, writing a proper caption, writing something that is engaging and can start a conversation, it's really going to help the Instagram algorithm value your content a lot more. So instead of trying to impress with flashy content initially when you're just starting out especially, really try to engage or to resonate with other people and relate to other people, because that's going to be something that will really help your reels take off, but also it's going to mean that you don't necessarily have to spend hours creating a single reel. And you'll start to realize that on Instagram, the vast majority of people who are posting are just like you. They may not be photographers, they may not be videographers. A lot of influencers on this platform are not professional photographers or videographers. They are simply shooting content on their phone and editing it inside the Instagram app. And they have a very good grasp on how engagement works through Instagram and how to resonate with people. And I think that is really a key thing when you're thinking about Instagram content. It does not need to be incredible content. That's another thing to remember, is that quite often reels that were made a couple of months ago may never be seen again. So you have to be always creating content. If you make that amazing reel that took you 4 hours to make and you've posted that, and then 3 months later, it's probably not going to be getting the same amount of traction anymore. It's a lot of time that can be wasted on activities like that, instead of really keeping reels a little bit more simple and not always being so stressed about how aesthetically pleasing it is to the eye or even how technically perfect it is. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video today on why you don't need to have incredible Instagram content, especially for reels. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, because I'd really love to hear other people's thoughts about this. And I think that's my dog squeaking their toy in the background there. So if you hear that, that's them. If you do have any other suggestions for me to film for my YouTube channel, please let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to do more around Instagram in particular. I do find the algorithm kind of fascinating, so I'm trying to do experiments specifically with my travel account to see how far I can push certain things like daily posting or how the algorithm is reacting to certain things that I do. So I'm definitely going to be doing more content like that. But otherwise, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure you do, because I'll be posting a lot more content like this in future. And give this video a like if you liked it, but in the meantime, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!